Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Motorgraph World channel. It's been a while, but today we're back with another comparison. Actually, it's a very interesting comparison because it's the EV6 versus the GV60. They're both with the same platform, with the same segment. However, let's see which one outperforms in terms of the electrical vehicle. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the faces of both cars. I'm going to start with the EV6 because I like this one better. You start with the clamshell bonnet. It's very clean up on top, and you have these distinct two lines that give a little bit of a character. And then you come down to these lights. They're very agile, and it looks as if someone drew a very fierce looking eye on the car. And then down below you also have the lip, but it's also quite masculine. Compared to that, if you look at the GV60, you also have the same kind of clamshell bonnet with a little bit of a volume on top, and you do have the two distinct character lines on the side, but apart from that, it's completely different in terms of the overall aesthetic. It's more rounder, and then the lights are squared. Down below you have the lip, but it's a little bit more of a volume, and it's circular, rounded. And if you look at both cars standing next to each other, you think of this one as being a little bit more masculine and this one slightly being more feminine and rounded. Let's take a look at the side profile of the GV60 first. You have 21-inch tires and the wheels attached, and also the digital side mirror. I tested out the digital side mirror and it's not that uncomfortable. It's actually very easy to get accustomed to. The side also starts with a lot of volume. It goes all the way through to the back without any kind of character lines, which I think is nice and clean. The roof also is more like a coupe style, along with its GV70. I wonder why they didn't go with the front face as well with the GV70, because I would have personally liked it much better if it had a similar face or a look with the GV70. And now taking a look at the EV6. I do like a lot of the design cues. Personally, first of all, I think that this color is a really good color for the EV6. Maybe it's not a direct comparison because they're not both graphite or dark gray, but the blue color really fits the EV6 quite well. From the daylight running lamps as well as the headlamps, which are peaked on the side, it follows through with the line, and it's very clean as well. Those who know me know that I don't really like character lines that much, but the side profile is very clean for the EV6 as well. In the middle, it just has one line dashing through. This one particularly has 20-inch tires and wheels on it, so it's a little bit of a difference, but still it looks pretty good with this size. And now coming to the back, starting with the GV60, it has a bulge. It's also very voluptuous at the back. It also follows through with the design aesthetic of the GV70 and 80. You have the two lights system, and then you also have the blue license plate for the e-vehicle. Let's take a look at the EV6. The EV6 is a little bit more sportier at the back. You have these lights in sequence, and then you have these designs, kind of like, once again, diamond-like designs. You do know that Hyundai and Kia both like these kinds of parametric lights as well as designs. And at the back, it's quite flat, but still, compared to the GV60, you have a little bit more of a volume, and the rear spoiler here adds to the sportiness of it. And now for the Mari trunk test for the GV60. And now it's a slight jump up because it's an SUV, but it's not that bad, and it's quite spacious. I still have the bar attached on this one, but if you take this out, then you'll have a little bit more space. The width of the trunk, I think it'll be able to fit about 2 Maris, except for the headroom here, because it's a slanted roof because of the coupe-like design. And now I've opened up the trunk for the EV6. Even at first glance, it's much wider. It's also a bit easier to get in because it's not as high. As for the entire width of the trunk, they're almost similar, because if I spread out my legs, I can just fit one of myself in. But in terms of the height, I think that the EV6 is lower than the GV60. But still, if you fold up the second row seats, I think that this will be a very comfortable Mari trunk. The GV60 is the smallest of the lineup. Size of the vehicle inside the car is quite compact, and the line of sight is comparable to the size of the car. There is not much hindrances. Still, it's not very tall or it's not very wide. They've used a lot of different materials inside the car. It's a mixture of leather, plastic, and stitching. They've thought a lot about the design of the car. It's definitely younger than the GV70, because the GV70 seems a little bit more grown up, whereas this one is on the younger side. You have the different stitching, the lime green in this case with the leather. The leather is extremely soft and it's very nice. And in the middle you have the wide screen that is actually attaching two screens together. It gives you a very clean, streamlined look, and it's very easy. And then for the HVAC, it's all a mixture of the touch screens as well as the analog buttons. I personally do like this analog touch because I don't want everything to be digital, especially when you're driving. If you've pressed something and whether that kind of clicks. So I think that they've thought about the most widely used buttons and made them analog. The others, they made them into a touchscreen. It's a mixture of the two. So as for the storage inside, you have a lot of options. On the door trim, you can place a water bottle here. Then you have two cup holders in the middle, in the center console. You do have this space right here where you can put in whatever you need. It's not that big of a space, but you still can put in some stuff. But unlike the Ioniq 5, which is a moving console, and the EV6, which still has a little bit of room down below, this one doesn't move and it's just protruding. So you can't really place anything underneath because it will just move back and forth. And there is this small compartment with a net, but you can't actually, I can't actually reach inside. It's very difficult to place anything, but there is space down there. So I don't know. I mean, maybe from the back you might want to, you can access it a little bit easier. But from the driver's seat, you can't really do anything with the bottom compartment here. You also have the glove box, which is a pull-out drawer in this case. This, I think, is more convenient because then you don't have to reach inside and you can just pull out and use whatever you need from the drawer. The seats in this case are quite firm. And you have all different kinds of adjustments. You have the side bolsters. You also have the perforated seats. You have different types of materials being used because this is a suede-like material along with the leather. You also have the piping in lime green and the stitching in lime green as well. Genesis really likes diamonds or diamond shapes or parametric whatever, because they always use this kind of design aesthetic where you have the diamond shapes. As for the comfort, I do like it with the more lumbar support, but once again, this is a more firm type of seat compared to some others. And now for the panoramic sunroof. Those of you who do like the wide view of the Ioniq 5 might think that this is a little bit too small, but then compared to the EV6, which is just the generic type of sunroof, you'll be able to enjoy a wider panoramic sunroof. But I did like the Ioniq 5 when it's completely wide shot of the sky. Compared to that, this one seems a bit more closed off. The seats, once again, are on the firm and rigid side. There's a lot of leg room. Because I have set my driver's seat to my seat position, maybe that's why. But still, if you had a little bit of a taller person drive, you could still fit your knees and legs in quite comfortably. There's no protrusion in the middle seat. It's just very flat. You also have the armrest that you can pull down with two cup holders. I mentioned that there is this space under the center compartment. I don't really know what this is for. I mean, I guess it's for more space to put in luggage or whatnot, but then it's actually guarded by this kind of net. But this is very it's really uncomfortable because it doesn't slide smoothly. And we've put this battery in here just to show you that this does do the V2L, the vehicle to load. You can actually make use of the electricity that the car holds and use it to charge your batteries or charge your phone, and that's for our camera. And so this has the seat reclining function. So it goes all the way, it folds up and then it goes all the way back. But since I'm 162 centimeters, I can easily and comfortably relax while the seat is reclined. However, you don't have that much headroom while you're sitting back. Because of this slope in the ceiling, you might bump your head a couple of times. If you want to have a lot of headroom, it's best if you just sit up. Then you have more than enough space. So now I'm sitting in the EV6 and the driver's seat is quite comfortable, but once again, compared to the GV60, you do have a slightly lower line of sight with the window. It's a bit more slanted downwards, but it's not as tall as the GV60. And the materials used inside the EV6 are also quite nice. The steering wheel, you also have a mixture of different materials. Here, the black high gloss, which I do know that a lot of people do not like because of its dust gathering properties. Also, what was very interesting about the EV6 was this kind of grained, striped type of material that's used on this counter. You also have the two screens that are attached just like the GV60. And here you also have the touch type dials. Apart from the knob here with the volume and the power function, everything else is in fact touch. I would have preferred to have a little bit more of an analog type button. You can also tell that this is a car that's catered towards the driver because you have everything that's a little bit shifted, geared to the driver. The power button, the rotary type, as well as all of the buttons are slightly slanted towards the driver so that the driver can easily switch different functions. One difference is that you have the space right here. This one doesn't move. However, it does have a lot of space down below so that you can store whatever you need. As for the GV60, you didn't have that much space down below, but here I think that you would be able to put in your bag or your water bottles, and this would definitely be quite effective and convenient. The seats are slightly more cushion type compared to the GV60. The GV60 was quite firm. Once again, it's very comfortable. The second row seats also have a lot of room. I think it even has a little bit more leg room compared to the GV60. The seats are a little bit more comfortable in the back as well because of the cushion. And as for the recline, it does fold up and it goes all the way back here. And unlike the GV60, which had the slanted roof a little bit closer to your head, the EV6 is a little bit farther away. So for a 162 centimeter girl like me, I think you don't have any kind of problem getting up. Overall, you can tell that the interior of the EV6 is quite dark. Of course, you could switch up the different color mixtures, but I personally like the fact that it's a bit dark, but I would have wanted a panoramic sunroof to extend all the way to here. This one only has a generic half-size sunroof, and for me, I think that if they had applied the panoramic sunroof that they do on the Ioniq 5, it would have been super. BK is going to be actually driving alongside me on a drag race to see which model or which vehicle performs better. Of course, there will be a skill set difference, but I'm hoping that the EV6 will outperform the GV60. Go. Good job! Both on eco mode, and my EV6 wins. Yay!
3, 2, 1. go!
Ah, damn. Well, it's fast enough because it actually gets to 100 really fast. But yeah, the GV60 just used its boost function on top of the sports. So you can really drastically see the difference in the performance. However, without the sports and without the boost function, the EV6 was clearly a winner for both the normal as well as the eco mode. So hands down. So our tester actually rode this car and did the 0 to 100 kilometers per hour. And in fact, it was a whopping 3.8 seconds. So I'm going to test it out too. Here is the sports mode, and I've turned on the boost. Oh, it does give you a kick and a boost. The numbers shooting up on the gauge in front of me there with the head-up display. So when you use the boost mode and the sports mode, it's very impressive. It's very fast, it gives you a kick. But the drawback is that if you turn it to eco mode, this car completely halves down the power output. So it just completely kills the motors in the front and only uses the ones in the back. So it's basically the same with the long-range rear motor. If you think about ICE models, internal combustion engine models, it uses one engine. However, for this EV, because it has the front and back motors, it can cut out the power of the front or the back. In this case, they've completely cut out the front two motors in eco mode. So efficient, yes, but fun, not really. It's a real big contrast to what you can get with the sports mode and the boost. So this model also has electronic suspension, so it's controlled electronically. This isn't such a bumpy road, or it's just a paved normal cement or asphalt road. But if you turn on sports, you immediately feel more of the bump and the gravel and of course the vibrations from the ground. And for comfort mode, it feels as if they've immediately put one more layer of cushions underneath your seat. So I've mentioned countless times that I usually like my steering wheels to be a little bit more heavier or on the heavier side when you're turning. But a lot of the Korean made usually have very light steering wheels. This feels a little bit heavier for me compared to the other domestic models. At the moment, this one is 93% charged. We started off with 97%, so we've used about 4% of that. With the HVAC on, it says that it's going to go 343 kilometers. EV models these days are very controversial because of their total driving range. 345 kilometers, it's not that high, but then I believe depending on the driver and depending on your driving style, you'll be able to go even further. And at the moment, we're going at about 4.0 kilometers per kilowatt hours. So I've turned on the driving mode to sports mode. It instantly gives you a boost and a kick. But we've seen from our drag race that, in fact, there's not much of a difference compared to sports mode and normal and eco for this model. The steering wheel is a bit more lighter compared to the GV60. I liked the steering wheel of the GV60 because it had a little bit of a grip and it pushed back a little bit too, and it felt a bit heavier. This one is definitely much lighter. I would have preferred a heavier version. For GV60, if you turn on sports mode and then it becomes a more agile and sportier car, but for the comfort mode of the GV60, not so much. For EV6, I think that this is a generally sporty car But I do have high hopes that the GT version of the EV6 will completely wow us. So I have high hopes for that model. So I know it's not a direct comparison, but if I remember correctly, the GV60 had 346 kilometers for the range when it was 93% charged. But for this one, the battery life is at 72% right now. With the HVAC off, it's telling me that it can drive around 282 kilometers. So I'm thinking that this one has even more or longer driving range. So we did a comparison of these two vehicles today and even did a drag race. So that was very interesting, but I still think the EV6 is closer to my preference in terms of design and the overall drive. Of course, the GV60 did outperform in terms of the drag race with the boost mode and the I-pedal braking, but my heart is still going towards the EV6. So please leave all of your posts and comments down below and remember to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.